Hello everyone and thank you for joining our webinar today. We will be discussing different aspects to consider when integrating Business Central to SOLIDWORKS. We expect this webinar to take somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 minutes. Before we dive into today's topic, let me share a bit about myself. I've been working with Soft since 2008, focusing mainly on custom tools as well as projects we have completed for SOLIDWORKS and SOLIDWORKS PDM. With me today, I have Simo Erkinaimo, Product Manager of Custom Tools. You can use the chat box if you have any question. We will use time after the presentation to answer them. Before getting into more details, let's start with a short introduction. Here, we have an image that could be anyone's company. It consists of many islands which are not really connected to each other. The challenge comes when having to transfer goods from one island to the other. Even though those islands are right next to each other, we can easily picture the challenge. Integrating SOLIDWORKS with Business Central or any other ERP system is very similar to that image. So an integration can be seen as a bridge between different islands. But this image is not only about building bridges, but more about understanding the different challenges that comes with an integration. One of them is to realize that depending on which side of the island you are sitting, you have a different view, which in ERP integration could be translated as different expectations. Here we have an overview of how we typically conduct ERP integration projects with 4 main phases. Something that is very important to mention is that even if we integrate to the same ERP system, every ERP integration are different from each other. This is why the specification phase is the most critical one. Specification will help to reduce the risk and get a good understanding of the workflow that the data should follow between SOLIDWORKS and Business Central. Even though the integration offers many functionalities, it might be that customization might be required. Defining objectives is the foundation to a successful integration. Defining the objective starts by understanding what problem and issues you are facing today so that we can define what should be automated with the integration. And remember, not everything should be automated. One important concept when it comes to ERP CAD integration is the concept of master and slave. This is used to define what system controls which process or attributes. The masters own the data and will have the last word over the slave. This concept is important because it defines how items and bill of materials are created and updated between Business Central and SOLIDWORKS. It is important to define what is a master and slave for each process or attribute. That can be achieved with very basic question. Just keep in mind that it will be one or the other, but not both. The best recommendation that we can give to any company integrating Business Central with SOLIDWORKS is to start small and grow big. And here is why. Integrating an ERP system with SOLIDWORKS involves many uncertainties. As the integration project progresses, new challenges emerge. Each step forward reveals unexpected complexities, much like opening new doors. These challenges often arise from factors that were not anticipated during the specification phase. Integration can be quite complex, and establishing a solid foundation is the first milestone in the process. This will help everyone become familiar with the integration, and most importantly, it allows you to build expertise regarding what the integration can deliver. As mentioned earlier, depending on which side of the bridge you are on, expectation can vary, or I should say that expectation will vary, as the two systems function differently. It's essential to find a common ground for both systems. Here is an overview of what we are going to review today. Our goal is not to get into a detailed presentation, but to highlight key points that should be considered when deploying an integration between Business Central and SOLIDWORKS. It's important to mention that while there are best practices and recommendations we can offer, we must also keep in mind that sometimes we need to adapt to how you are working with Business Central and SOLIDWORKS. And this is what will define the way to conduct the integration. Let's get started with the requirements from Business Central. BC offers different levels of licenses, and the integration capabilities depend on the type of Business Central license you are using. For example, with a team member license, you will be limited to importing data from Business Central to SOLIDWORKS. The Essential license allows you to export data from Business Central, but it does not support exporting to the production BOM. To enable that functionality, you will need to use the Premium license. Okay, so let's move to the next chapter. So we are going to check the item management. This is an overview of how the export to Business Central works from SOLIDWORKS. We perform different checks, and based on the result, we can take specific actions. It is important to understand how item linking works between SOLIDWORKS and Business Central. Not all SOLIDWORKS models will be exported to BC, but we will cover that later on during the presentation. Each SOLIDWORKS model exported to BC will have a corresponding item in Business Central. We use a unique identifier that is common to both systems. For instance, it could be the item number in Business Central correspond to the SOLIDWORKS file name or a custom property value defined in SOLIDWORKS. Before running an export to Business Central, we perform a check to verify whether the item already exists or not. The first step is to create an item. An item will be created if we detect that it does not exist during the comparison. Also, we can define rules to prevent the creation of items for specific SOLIDWORKS files. For example, this could include the child component of a purchased assembly. The first challenge is to define what will be used to determine the item number in Business Central. We have two possibilities. The first one, if Business Central is the master, we can then use the number series from Business Central, meaning the item number will follow a sequence pulled directly from Business Central. Or then, if SOLIDWORKS is the master for item numbering, we can use an attribute from SOLIDWORKS, such as a file name or a custom property value of the SOLIDWORKS model. If we are using the number series from Business Central, then the item number can be generated during the export. The item number can be generated based on a category to select a specific number series in Business Central. Once the item number is generated, it will be created in Business Central, and the item number will be written back as a custom property of the SOLIDWORKS document. Using one or the other method has its own benefits and disadvantages. The choice is more dependent on how you are working in Business Central. During item creation in Business Central, we can also add field attributes in the business item card. We can push custom properties defined in SOLIDWORKS as attribute field of the item card in Business Central. It's very important to differentiate between what is required in Business Central and what is not. Not all custom properties defined in SOLIDWORKS need to be pushed to Business Central, as some attributes exist independently in Business Central and SOLIDWORKS. Another key point is that BC has stricter requirements for data formatting compared to SOLIDWORKS or PDM. While SOLIDWORKS and PDM allow flexibility with the formatting of metadata, this freedom is often incompatible with Business Central, which requires specific standard for the formatting. Here we can see the custom tools property pane on the left, where properties are managed in SOLIDWORKS. And then on the right side, we have the corresponding mapping when viewing the mapped item in Business Central. So we can map pretty much any type of properties defined in SOLIDWORKS with the attribute field in the item card in Business Central. Sometimes an integration requires to pull metadata from BC into SOLIDWORKS. An item may already exist in Business Central, and you might want to link it with a SOLIDWORKS model. This is often the case for purchase component where the reference already exists in Business Central. In such scenarios, you can use the external item search to perform a live search in Business Central directly from SOLIDWORKS. Once you locate the corresponding item in BC, you can select it and import the metadata from the item card in BC into the custom properties of the SOLIDWORKS model. There are additional ways to pull metadata from Business Central into SOLIDWORKS. For example, you can link the lookup list of the item card available in BC to the lookup list available in SOLIDWORKS. Adding the SOLIDWORKS preview image and converted files to the BC item. So we have developed our own code unit that enables the export of a preview image of the 3D model from SOLIDWORKS to the item card in BC. This code unit needs to be imported into BC to work properly. With the same code unit, we can also use it to insert links to converted files from SOLIDWORKS. For example, during an export, you can convert your drawings to PDF and insert a link to the PDF file in the item card in BC. It is also possible to attach the converted files directly to BC. But due to space limitation, most of our customers prefer to only include a link. Another important aspect of an integration is how to maintain existing data in both systems. Once an item has been created, it may need to be updated. If changes are made in SOLIDWORKS properties or the item in BC, how should those changes be handled by the integration? Should we update data in BC, SOLIDWORKS, or just ignore differences in both systems? That is one very important question. How should data be maintained in both systems? Earlier, we discussed the concept of master and slave, and here we have a concrete example where this can be used. If a SOLIDWORKS model has a corresponding item in BC and the values for the specific attribute, for example, the description differ between the two systems, how should the integration handle that? We can define that for certain attributes, the master is Business Central, for instance, the unit of measure. And for others, like the description, the master will be SOLIDWORKS. The key is to stick to the defined rule consistently. So we have three possibilities. During an export, we can import changes from BC to SOLIDWORKS if BC is the master. In this case, if the description is different between the two systems, the description from Business Central will be pushed to SOLIDWORKS properties. Or then, during an export, we can push changes from SOLIDWORKS to Business Central if SOLIDWORKS is the master. In this case, if the description defined in SOLIDWORKS is different, it will be pushed to the item card. So you can see here we have the color code, and if it's yellow, it means that we are going to update the data in Business Central. Or then we can define that nothing gets updated and the differences remain as they are in both systems. Now that we have checked the item, it takes us to the next chapter, engineering BOM in SOLIDWORKS and other bill of material in Business Central. Let's get started with the bill of material creation in Business Central. So let's review the process. So basically during an export, we check if the bill of material exists or not. If it does not, then we can create the assembly or the production BOM. We can also create the assembly BOM and production BOM at the same time during the same export. Exporting BOM to BC is more complex than creating item. By default, we export respects and follow the SOLIDWORKS bill of material structure. Also, we can implement logic to include or exclude specific components in the bill of material based on criteria, such as a custom property values. Also, as mentioned earlier, the integration supports both the production and assembly BOMs in Business Central. One of the main challenges in the BOM export is to differentiate CAD item from non-CAD item in the Business Central bill of material. A BOM can be created for the top-level assembly and also for the sub-assemblies. As we can see here, in the export dialog, I have like two assemblies, let's call the master assembly and the sub-assembly. And when we look in Business Central, we created like a bill of material for each of those SOLIDWORKS assemblies. So this is also something that can be controlled by the integration. Here we can see the SOLIDWORKS BOM as it appears in Business Central. Keep in mind that for Business Central, all items listed in that bill of material are only coming from the list of items in Business Central. This is something very important. If we have a purchased assembly in SOLIDWORKS, we can define that no bill of material should be created for that assembly. This is because the purchased assembly is represented as a single item in Business Central, and there is no need to create items for its child component. This behavior can be controlled using an attribute. For example, the property purchase can be used to determine how child components are handled during the export process. Updating existing bill of material in Business Central. Even if the bill of material is different, it does not mean that it can be updated in Business Central. The integration aligns with how Business Central operates and allows the updating of existing bill of material. However, if a bill of material is marked as certified in BC, it can no longer be updated within Business Central. So if we try an export, it's not going to work. So it's very important that we also respect the logic that has been implemented in Business Central. If a new part or assembly is added to the SOLIDWORKS assembly, it will be added to the BOM in Business Central. So we can see here, I have added a new component to an existing bill of material. So it will also be added during the export to that assembly if it already exists in Business Central. If the quantity of a component is increased or decreased, but not removed, the BOM will be updated to reflect the correct quantity. But here is a more complex example, how to manage components that are removed from a SOLIDWORKS assembly. They are still appear in the Business Central bill of material, but not anymore in the SOLIDWORKS bill of material. The complexity lies in the fact that those items might be items that had been added directly in the BC bill of material. They are not related at all with the SOLIDWORKS part or assembly. We have the possibility to delete those rows from the Business Central bill of material, or then just ignore the changes. Now let's check how to manage non-CAD item in the Business Central bill of material. SOLIDWORKS produces an engineering BOM, but a BC BOM requires additional components that are not always managed in SOLIDWORKS and needs to be added directly into the bill of material in Business Central. Deciding how bill of material in Business Central are updated is not as simple as it sounds, because it might affect how other components added in the BC BOM will be treated during the update. Here we have an example where we have a Business Central bill of material containing items from SOLIDWORKS, as we can see in the red rectangle, and other items that were added directly to the bill of material in green. If we move to SOLIDWORKS, I have removed one part from that sub-assembly. When comparing the bill of material, we can see two items that were added manually in Business Central, as well as parts that were removed from the SOLIDWORKS assembly as it is still present in Business Central. As we discussed earlier, we have two options. Ignore the differences. In this case, the part removed in SOLIDWORKS would need to be manually deleted from the Business Central bill of material. Or then the second option is to delete the component. This option would remove the part from the Business Central bill of material automatically. However, any non-CAD item would need to be re-added to the Business Central BOM manually. So you see the answer to what is the right solution is not that easy, because each of those the choice you decide to do will have some impact how the bill of material can be updated in Business Central. So now let's move to how we can manage non-CAD item in your SOLIDWORKS BOM. So just before we check how we can manage the non-CAD item in the BC BOM, but now we are going to check the same but from the SOLIDWORKS side. Not all items are designed in SOLIDWORKS, but still need to be part of the engineering BOM that will be pushed to Business Central. Paint, cables are not usually modeled in SOLIDWORKS, or sometimes to make the assembly lighter, not all the screws needed in that assembly are inserted into the SOLIDWORKS assembly, so you can just see them as virtual components. The custom scope in custom tools allows you to manage what we could refer as virtual components in the bill of material that will be exported to Business Central. A part or assembly can have a separate table managed via custom tools that can be used to add those virtual components, which are not represented as a model in SOLIDWORKS, but can be pushed as a bill of material lines in Business Central. Those virtual items are not part of your SOLIDWORKS bill of material, but will only be pushed to the BOM in Business Central. Let's check how we can manage multi-body parts that are created in SOLIDWORKS in Business Central. So a multi-body part in SOLIDWORKS is a single part file containing two or more separate bodies. These bodies can represent different components, but how should they be managed in Business Central? We have two options. Option 1, treat each body as an individual item and create a bill of material for the multi-body part in Business Central. With this approach, it's very useful if you need to manage material consumption for each body in Business Central. Or then the second option is to treat the multi-body part as a single item, similar to how we handle single body parts. The choice of which option is more appropriate depends on how the production of multi-body part is handled in your company. If the production is carried out on site, you will likely want to manage material consumption and create a dedicated bill of material for the multi-body part. If the production is outsourced, you probably only need to treat the multi-body part as a single item. All the information regarding the multi-body part will be present in your SOLIDWORKS drawings or the PDFs that you will share with the person that will produce that part. Let's take a look at the first option. So in this example, I have just a single part containing multiple bodies. From the export dialog, we can see that the multi-body parts are listed as individual items. The bodies are also grouped based on their material. When we move to Business Central, we can see that a bill of material is created for the part, listing the different materials required for the different bodies. In this scenario, we are relying heavily on the metadata obtained from the cut list item in SOLIDWORKS. And this is something very important. If you want to manage cut list item as individual items in BC, you need to have valid metadata for the cut list item properties. Otherwise, the export cannot really work. So let's move to how we can manage SOLIDWORKS revision in Business Central. There are three main options for handling SOLIDWORKS revision in Business Central. To choose the right option, consider this question. Do you need to track SOLIDWORKS revision in Business Central? Or are the revisions retro-compatible, which means that different revisions of the same component can be used in the same assembly? In this approach, only the latest SOLIDWORKS revision is kept in Business Central, so with no dedicated revision tracking. Minor revision, being retro-compatible, always update the existing item. For major revisions, a new SOLIDWORKS file is created along with a new item in BC. So here we are not retracking SOLIDWORKS revision. In option 2, every SOLIDWORKS revision is treated as a new item in Business Central, which allows SOLIDWORKS revisions tracking in BC. Each revision is assigned a separate item, identified, for example, by combining the item number and the revision. So we can see here I have the item number, and then I have revision A, and then I have a different revision, and I have the B for the second item in Business Central. And finally, the last option, where revision tracking is managed in Business Central using variants. A single item is maintained in Business Central with a variant created for each SOLIDWORKS revision. Similar to managing revision, we can check how to manage SOLIDWORKS configuration in Business Central. The first option is to create SOLIDWORKS configuration into different items in Business Central. Each SOLIDWORKS configuration will have a unique BC item number. For example, if a part has 3 configurations, each configuration will have a separate item number in BC. However, if you are using a separate item for every configuration, you cannot use the same file name in SOLIDWORKS and item number in BC. Then the second option is to use variant in Business Central to manage SOLIDWORKS configuration, which require customization. In this case, each SOLIDWORKS configuration is represented as a separate variant in Business Central. The SOLIDWORKS model containing those configurations is represented as a single item in BC, as we can see here. If you are using the same item for every configuration, you can then use the same file name in SOLIDWORKS as the item number in Business Central. However, if variants are used to manage revision, we might have to revert to the first option. So we need to decide how we manage revisions and how we are going to manage configurations if they are used in SOLIDWORKS. The final chapter in that webinar is how to manage legacy files. This can be very tricky. As we discussed earlier, we need to be able to link a SOLIDWORKS model with an item in BC. If we are unable to do that, managing legacy files becomes very challenging. If we are able to make the connection, we must keep in mind that we might still face data compatibility issues. Having issues does not mean that we cannot integrate legacy files, but it may require more work or customization to ensure that we can handle old legacy files in the same way as we handle files created with custom tools. We do not want to create a mess in the EAP. If legacy files need to be integrated, we need to be 100% sure that what we will send is correct. Often, companies who want to handle legacy files with the integration are looking for a mass export to the EAP, but that can be very tricky. The main risk comes from the lack of validation before pushing data to Business Central. We probably need to update metadata and files before being able to push legacy files to EAP, and we also have some tools for that. But integrating legacy relies heavily on testing, and that can be very complex. Thank you for joining us today. This is all what we had for you today. So we hope you enjoyed our webinar, and we hope to see you next month, where we are going to have similar webinar as the one we had today, but this time regarding Odoo.
We are in the life-saving business. We kill your routines before they kill you.